Welcome to spring, everybody. What a great day. Yay for warm weather. I'm Ruth Ann Webster, League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters does a lot of different things, and one of the things that we have is we have a small environmental committee. All things related to the earth are what the environmental committee is interested in, and we're especially interested today to have Tony Guggisberg of
River Creek.
Oh, stop! River. Where was I? Anyway, Tony Guggisberg of River Creek Nursery and his daughter Emily are here to talk to us about lawn care and about pollinating perennials. And Tony has said he's going to talk for a little while and then he's going to answer questions. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right.
And if people have questions as we're going along, feel free to ask them. I'll try to answer them right away so we can keep moving along.
Yeah, good.
So, yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for being here.
As Ruth Ann said, I'm Tony Guggisberg from River Creek Nursery, and yeah, my daughter Emily, she will be graduating this spring from South Dakota State University, also in horticulture. So if I can't answer it, we'll refer it to Emily. So you'll be seeing her more around. She's helped out at the nursery for the last 3 years?
Well, 6 years.
6 years already. Okay, she's little. We always have. You know how kids are when they're growing up. We kind of get them, involved in the activities with mom and dad or whatever. So anyway, I'm glad for her. So it's good. I didn't tell her she had to come in the field like I am, but I'm happy. Because we get to talk a lot about plants. And like I said, with spring coming on, this morning you go out and the grass is starting to turn green. The birds are chirping, the geese are flying. It's going to be a great day. So I will be talking about a lot of plants, pollinating plants that over the last few years I've had more and more people asking about plants. What can they do to their yard to benefit bees, butterflies, birds, all that. I'm going to talk about plants. We're going into natives. I'm also going to talk about lawn care a little bit. What can be done at this time of the year and how to improve your lawns. So we'll get some of that. But if we're going along, if you've got questions on anything, just ask. We'll be glad to go along and see if we can answer the questions for you. So dealing with pollinating plants, though, I came up with a list of just great perennials that I'm going to describe them and talk about these plants. If you don't have them in your yard, you should think about having them in your yard. They're easy to take care of. I used to say that people like lawns, but that lawns are one of the most high maintenance parts of your yard, and people don't realize that. And why? And I said, well, because you really have to mow it, every week if it's raining. Then you got to go out and put the fertilizer on. Some put it 3-4 times on a year. And then there's weed control because people don't like the weeds. Unfortunately, I kind of like my dandelions, so I let them bloom. The bees love them and stuff like that. And then it comes to fall and raking and thatching and all that. So there's a lot of work, but people like their lawns. I can't blame them. But so if everybody turned their lawns into like a native yard, I don't know if that would go over real well. Anyway, we're going to get started here. And then, like I said, if you've got questions on any of these, just ask. So asters. This is a great perennial for fall blooming. There's so many different varieties out there. A lot of times people tell me, I've had mums, but my mums, they freeze out over the year. There are hardy mums, and you have to be careful when buying mums. A lot of times places will sell mums in the fall. They're just decorative mums. If you're going to buy mums and want them to last more than 1 year, buy the hardy Minnesota-grown mums. They'll generally come back if you cover them up. But asters is a great one. It's a butterfly magnet in fall. I've had some of these, and the monarchs have just covered them up. They'll bloom late, get into that September, even into October, late October I had some of those bloom. So that's a great perennial, easy to take care of. They'll vary in size from anywhere of height, from probably 12 inches up to 36 inches. So it's a great one. They come in, like I said, lavender, pinks, different colors. One to really consider for late blooming perennial. Yeah?
Tony, would you add, if you happen to know, each of these, if they're deer resistant?
Yes. I definitely will. Good question.
Thank you.
Here is one. If the deer or rabbits or anything are bothering you in your yard, deer will not eat this. Anise hyssop, okay? It's in the mint family, and some of these perennials, if they're in the mint family, generally the wildlife will leave them alone, okay? If you crush the leaf, it'll smell like black licorice. It's one of my favorite perennials. It gets about 3 feet tall, has the blue flowers, blooms a long time, all summer. And the butterflies and bees will be on it throughout the whole season. You just absolutely, it's one of my, like I said again, one of my favorites, the anacissus. So, and the nice thing, like I said, the deer and the rabbits will not eat it. So,
And we don't have two sets.
Is this a plant or do you seed it in?
you can do both, but we sell them all as plants, so they're easy to start. And the ones I'm talking about are all perennials, okay? So they should come back for you. And the list that I have here today, really, they're very hardy. It's not like some of these tender perennials, like are they gonna come back next year? Hit and miss. These all should. Although when we have a year like this year, and we've had this happen a few years ago, where you have no snow cover sometimes, and then we have cold, and we have warm, and we have cold. That's what kills a lot of the perennials, the thawing and freezing. But so far, I just kind of dug down, and yesterday when the snow melt was gone, I looked at some of the perennials, and I could see little shoots coming already. So they look like they're gonna come, but we won't know exactly yet, so. Okay. Allium. Oh, look at the little bee, it's going on there. Yeah. Again, this other known as ornamental onion. This was a few years ago the perennial plant of the year. Very, very easy to grow. It's an onion family, like that. Gets those kind of deep purple little balls on top. Only gets 12 to 15 inches tall. Again, deer, rabbits, they don't bother it. They don't bother it. So it's another one. Because people always ask me, you know, and that's the biggest thing. With all the deer around town and around the surrounding areas, people always, what can we plant that the deer don't eat? So we have quite a list of plants.
Tony, some of those can spread though.
These here, they can. They can. And sometimes it's good or bad. So,
Yeah, it's spread all over.
okay. Now mine hasn't. Mine stays in a good clump. It's just like black-eyed Susans. I always wish mine would keep spreading.
Yeah.
We'll get to that one, and mine is the same plant that sits there. I'm like, keep going, and it doesn't. And the next yard I'll be at, I planted it there, and the patch gets bigger and bigger. So it varies. The bee balm. This is one. Yeah, hummingbirds right there. Hummingbird magnet. That's also in the mint family. You know what plants we know that are in the mint family? Does anybody know? The square stems. Somebody was studying. Yeah, they have a square stem. It's in the mint family. Again, rabbits, deer will not bother it. There's many different colors of the bee balm, also known as Monarda. This is one, I once had a big patch like that, and the next year it was all gone. It just seems to come and go. It's kind of one of those, and then it starts over again sometimes. But they generally get in that 12 to 30 inches tall, generally full sun. All these I'm going to talk about generally are full sun to part shade. They might take some shade. If there's some that really take shade, I'll let you know as we go along here. But this is another one. It does get powdery mildew sometimes. Just one of the things that they're susceptible to where they get kind of white on the leaf. But otherwise, a great one if you want to attract hummingbirds, plant the bee balm. Butterfly weed, you can see, this is one, grows sometimes wild in the ditches. This is a native one. Plant, gets about 12 to 15 inches tall, orange flowers. It's kind of hard to transplant sometimes, so we'll start them out, and you never know. It's one that I'll have 2 years in the yard, and then suddenly it doesn't come up, but 10 feet over, a new plant will start, because the pods that they get look like the regular milkweed. Okay, but even though they call it, so this is the butterfly weed. Sometimes people heard of butterfly bush. They see it advertised on magazines. That one is not totally hardy around here, so that could freeze out. But this is really a neat one if you want to attract the monarchs. Well, here's the black-eyed Susan. Again, a very tough perennial. This is one, like I said, it started on my yard. I wish it would keep spreading because I got an area I like to fill up, but it just stays in the same clump. It keeps coming up. There's many different varieties of this. Some of them will get bigger, larger flowers. They've hybridized them over time. But again, it's a great perennial. The deer will not generally touch it, but I have seen them eat it once in a while a little bit if I suppose they really get hungry. But we got different varieties that only get 12 to 15 inches tall, and then we've got some that will get 2 feet to 3. So. Catmint. Here's another one. How many have heard of catmint? Okay, catmint is a great one. It's closely related to catnip. Almost looks identical. Blue flowers. This plant will start blooming in generally June, and by the end of August, it's still blooming. Stays low. There's different ones. We got 3 varieties. Some will get as wide as 3 feet. Others, little junior ones, will get staying at probably 18 inches in size. But again, very low if you're looking for a perennial, low perennial that's going to stay for a border in front. Catmint is it. I like the flowers. It's just great. And easy to take care of. Easy to take care of. And if you're as we're talking about these perennials now, if you got all these perennials, you got some in your yard, don't start uncovering them all yet, even though we have 80-degree days, because it's a little early out there. I mean, some of them are going to start peeking up soon, but just wait and give it a little time. Coneflower. Coneflower, now this one is comes in red. Most of them, if we all know, if coneflower started out with deep purple foliage, not foliage, the flowers, and they've been breeding them over the years to have many different colors like red, yellow, golden, some shades of orange. What we found out is they're really cool looking, but sometimes they revert back to the purple, which is too bad. And some of them will die out. But coneflowers is another one. The butterflies love it. A very tough, durable perennial. And they're going to get, generally about 2 feet tall. Joe pieweed, now that's a big perennial. If you've got a big space you need to fill in, they'll get 4 feet tall and 4 to 5 feet wide. Late blooming, starts blooming about mid-August, going through fall. The butterflies will actually love that one. I get lots of monarchs on mine coming through. Easy to take care of, and once you get them established, they're there for a long time. Yeah, and there is another variety. If somebody says, oh, I don't like the big one, Little Joe, it's called Little Joe pieweed. It's a smaller version of that. So again, a great perennial, long-lasting. I don't think I've ever had a problem with deer eating on that one. Liatris. Liatris is kind of cool perennial. It gets probably 24 inches tall, just a nice little clump. It actually starts blooming. It's one of the few perennials that starts blooming from the top and works its way down. And generally it comes in the lavender color. There is a white version. We don't sell the white version. Just don't like it as much. I like the color on this one. And generally, like I said, easy to take care of, full sun, great perennial. Phlox. Phlox, some people just love phlox. You can have either the creeping phlox, which is very low, like a carpet, and it'll go, that's the one where the butterfly is on. And that's one of the early blooming perennials. Unfortunately, it blooms well for 2 weeks in spring, stays low, and after that, it's done. But like all perennials, they all got their bloom time. Some will bloom for a week, some for 2 weeks, some will bloom all summer. Obviously, most people say, I want something that's going to bloom all summer.
Yeah.
And then there's all the varieties of the tall phlox that are going to get that 18 inches, 2 feet, maybe even 30 inches. They're going to bloom later in summer, usually late July, going through August. And you can get, right now they've got all different colors, from two-tone colors to pink to white to reds. Again, I like phlox. They're easy to grow. The only problem is some of them do get powdery mildew where the leaves get white, start dropping off. You can spray for that, but we don't like to spray if we don't have to. That's why we try to plant resistant varieties. So, Russian sage. Well, if you got an area that's tough growing conditions, if you're not going to be out there to water it very often, or it's just hot, dry weather, Russian sage. It's tough, and it gets the light lavender blue flowers. It's probably going to get. There's different varieties again. Some of these perennials, they get rather big. Like this one will get 3.5 feet tall. But then again, they come out with new varieties with plant breeding over time. So there's smaller versions of it also if you don't want a big variety of the Russian sage. The deer will not bother it. It's one nice thing. It's in light blue flowers. It blooms a long time and will attract bees and butterflies also. Salvia is another one. Similar, almost looks like Russian sage, but smaller, but it is a nice perennial. This one will seed itself. Sometimes I get it and it comes up and suddenly I've got 20 more sages growing around. It's good and bad because if you want more plants, you got them. If not, you just get rid of them. But it's content. It blooms early in spring, generally late May, first part of June. They also come in pink and dark blue colors, so it's a good early producing perennial, blooming one. Yes.
I've had salvia that I deadheaded, and it blooms back again.
Yes, good point, because I have two, you
Just
can,
because it looked awful, I deadheaded it.
because sometimes they can get kind of big, they're done blooming, and then they just flop. So you can just cut it off and let it come up, and late season you'll have it'll be blooming also again. So. Swamp milkweed. How many have heard of swamp milkweed? It's very, very similar to the regular milkweed. And this one too, it seeds sometimes, so I have it in my perennial bed and it comes up. But you can see, I think there's a little bee on it, on the picture there too. The bees and yeah, right there. The bees and the butterflies love it. But it's like the other milkweeds. It gets pods and will spread. But it's a great perennial, easy to grow. Grows just about anywhere. Again, full sun. But we'll get about 24 to 36 inches tall. Yarrow's another one the deer won't bother. Not only come in bright yellow foliage, but you can get them in pinks or reds, just to add some color in your perennial bed. Like I said, the rabbits won't bother it, the deer don't bother it. So as I'm talking, you can see there is quite a list of plants that we have where the deer and rabbits won't bother it. Kind of a fern-like foliage. Nice little flowers on there. They generally bloom in June, going through part of July. Autumn joy sedum, fall blooming one. When I say fall, it's going to be, mid-August going through fall. When it starts cooling down, you get the nice red colors. There's a lot of sedums now out there that they've made that are more compact, smaller ones. They've got foliage color on them. Again, it's kind of in that succulent family, so it can take dry conditions. Sedums will generally do that. You don't have to water them a whole lot. Again, it's good when it's going to bloom in fall. The butterflies are out there, so it's good for those.
What do you do when they get larger and flop?
Divide them or else put a little cage around them. Yeah, we've had to do that. Same with peonies. I'm not talking about peonies today, but put a little cage. But they are coming out with some different varieties. And it's funny, they'll say stronger stems, less floppiness. So they keep breeding stuff to try to make it hold up. Because otherwise, there's certain perennials too I won't even talk about today that just, when they get so big, they just fall apart, So.
When will you cut that back, like in the fall, or do you wait till spring?
This is a good question because for all my perennials, I don't cut anything back in fall. Okay, I leave everything there for the winter. 2 reasons. One, that way come spring, I know what perennials I still have there. And 2, it protects the plant. Because when you have that foliage there and I want the leaves to catch in there, that's what protects that crown of the plant. Otherwise, what happens is you clean everything off, the wind blows, all the leaves are gone, if you pipe straw there, it's going to be gone. Yes, you want to protect that crown of the plant for the year. So then in spring, I'll go, and it's still too early. I've cut down a few of my perennials, but I left all the foliage there and stuff. I usually wait till probably mid-April, and then I'll clean everything off, cut it off, and rake it all off, and then everything's ready to go.
And tie mine off with ribbon.
Okay.
I've even used white tulle one year.
Yeah. So it works, but like I said, they are coming out with varieties, hopefully, that don't flop as much, but the autumn joy sedum, it's a nice, tough perennial. And, only gets, 2 feet tall, so.
And it will spread.
It does spread, yeah. And then there's grasses. Little blue stem, it's a native grass. We use it in the landscape, quite a few grasses. If you would have said 20 years ago, plant some clumps of grass in my perennial bed or something, most people are like grass? Don't we get rid of that? So that. But no, now they've come out with all these grasses. Little blue stem, it's been around for a long time, but they've got different varieties of it. Again, this variety, little blue stem, there's one called Blue Heaven, there's other ones. They generally get that 2 feet in size, height. Deer don't bother these native grasses, okay? So it's nice. See the nice color on there? And then it turns a beautiful fall color. It's just an easy, gorgeous plant to consider. Adding a little texture in with your perennial bed. I see Tom there. I know he's got some of this in his yard, and they're really nice. He can agree. Yeah, but like I said, easy to take care of. And the grasses are, some of us know, but others don't. We plant a lot of them, and then they don't green up in spring like that. When the foliage is dead, I leave the grasses because it's kind of decorative through the winter. But I've had customers that call me and said, you know, it came spring, my grass is still brown. You have to cut it off. It comes up from the base. And sometimes you think people know this, but they don't. So it's one of those I leave for the winter. They're kind of pretty in winter, the grasses, and then just cut it off in spring, and new growth will start. So that's the little blue stem. The other one, we plant a lot, prairie drop seed. Yes.
Do you feel like you have to burn off grasses, like in nature? Do you have to burn them?
Well, okay, if you have the area, it's really beneficial to burn them, clean it off, because it's so much easier if you have a big area than go out and try to cut it off. But it rejuvenates the plant, okay? It gets rid of the old foliage. So,
Don't you need a burning permit?
depending on where you are. Now, if you're out in the country, you just have to call and just let them know you're going to burn. You don't need a permit anymore. But in town, it's kind of tough. I suppose you could just start it quick in your backyard and say you're having a campfire or something. So, but it does work. And sometimes it's easier. I found it's easier to burn off the grasses than try to cut them because they're stringy, so it gets a little hard to cut them. But prairie drop seeds, it's got such fine texture and gets just the nicest little seed heads on it. It's really pretty in summer. You can see the foliage, and it's just one of those that if you want to put some grasses in front of your perennial bed, stuff like that, prairie drop seed's one of them. Certainly go ahead and use it. We've only put a couple grasses in here, the kind of native ones, but we sell probably 10 varieties of different grasses. Some real tall ones. I'm not going to get too much involved in that right now, but there's people always ask the pampas grass. The true pampas grass you see in magazines does not grow here, but we have some varieties that have the big plumes that are hardy here. And we try to sell most of the varieties of grass that stay in clumps. There are a few varieties that if you plant them, they can take off, and they will take over your whole yard. So, my prairie drop seed is just a cute little grass, and it's a native one.
Tony,
Yeah.
just to reiterate what you said, I planted a little clump
Okay.
of grass. I now have 30 feet, 4 feet wide of pampas grass.
Okay. So you may think that's the pampas grass, but it may look like it's got white plumes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If not,
No, it's that one actually around here is called maiden grass.
Maiden?
Maiden grass. Yeah, it gets the white plumes yet. Yeah, but that is the variety that, yes, if you have an area and you don't mind, you can plant a clump like that and it will spread. It'll just keep going. So, if you're thinking about making a little perennial bed, where you can, it's kind of nice because we're talking about perennials. You can do a little bed like this, put some flowers in there. This is an early spring picture of it. And then most of those are dianthus, the little ones that are blooming early. And as they die down, the other perennials will certainly take over. I think we got another picture. You can see how they're still in there. Both of these are the same perennial bed, just 2 months apart. And you can see all the perennials now that have come up and started blooming in there. And then there's some cannas and some other stuff that was added. But it's easy enough to make a perennial bed like that, or you can start anywhere in the yard. And just, what you want to make sure if you're going to do perennials, make sure it's well drained. Perennials don't like wet feet, except for the swamp milkweed. Because some of them, if it gets too wet, they're going to rot, okay? So just be careful. I'm going to talk about a few other plants as long as we're here this morning. Plants because they're either popular or because the deer won't bother them. Because I have a lot of, here's my 2 biggest questions I always get. What can we plant that the deer don't eat and the rabbits don't eat? So that's the other. The other one is, this is probably the number 1 question I get. how can I get grass to grow underneath my trees? We'll talk about that. It doesn't work. Certain trees it will, but it's just hard. Grass is not meant to be underneath some trees. But I'm going to talk about some few other plants here. Boxwood. Here's another plant. 20 years ago, we never even sold boxwoods. We sold a lot of evergreen bushes, like yews and stuff like that. You know what happened? One year the weather got really bad. The deer got really hungry. They ate most people's evergreens, arborvitaes, the yews, whatever. Left them with nothing. And now the deer seem to stay here, and they've got accustomed to eating evergreens. So it's really hard to us. So we added boxwoods. At first there was a big plant that out east you'd see boxwoods all over hedges. Big. We finally had hardy varieties here, but boxwoods have saved us. It's now probably our #1 selling plant. It's a deciduous evergreen, which means it's going to stay green all year. It's got little tiny leaves, waxy leaves. Stays bright green unless it's in the sun. Ideally, you'd like to give it some shade, especially late day. I plant these, a lot of them, north side, east side, where they're going to get the morning sun, afternoon sun. But it's so easy to take care of. You can trim them however you want. You can just leave them like that. You can shape them in a round box, a ball. If you don't trim them, they can get 5-6 feet tall. But I had to put it in there because it's one of those, if you're looking for something to put in your yard that the deer will not eat and stay green, a boxwood. Black chokeberry. If you're not familiar with black chokeberry, it's kind of a nice little bush because I call it the all-season bush. It blooms white in spring, and then it has the blue-purple fruit in summer, and then in fall, it turns a beautiful red fall color, orange-red fall color. Only gets 4 to 5 feet tall, so it's kind of a nice shrub to work with. Does sucker sometimes, but yeah, if you're looking for, we don't plant a lot of them because people don't know of them. But black chokeberries is kind of one of those nice little bushes. The only problem is rabbits will eat on the stems in winter if they're looking for something to eat. So, hydrangea. I like that. This is Strawberry Sunday. Hydrangeas have exploded over the years. There's so many different varieties out there. And we used to be with the old Annabelle hydrangea, big white flowers flopped over all over. Now we got all kinds of new hydrangeas, strong stems, colors, pinks, whites. How many are familiar with the Endless Summer one that had the blue? Disaster here. They put all that hype in it. Oh, you look in every magazine. Endless Summer, big blue flowers and this and that. Okay, we had them for a few years. The worst plant around here. The worst. You know what? You plant it in your yard. I come home at night. It had one flower, it'd be hanging, all the foliage. You'd water it, it'd perk up. The next night, it'd be hanging. And you're lucky if you got a couple of blooms. They like acid soil. We don't have acid soil. So you know what? The next year they came out. Oh, sell this with it. We'd sell a canister of acid-loving fertilizer so everybody could give it acid fertilizer. It was still a disaster. I did see a few of that bloom more, but it was more work than it was worth. We finally got rid of it and said, forget growing the blue ones, and stuff like that. The Strawberry Sunday, we've got, different ones. Bobo, this is a white one, and they're all so nice. And they bloom a long time. They'll start already in mid-July, and they'll bloom all through the fall. And then you can collect the flower heads if you want. But yeah, generally from white flowers to that, the pink going almost to a red. We've got about 7 varieties now we sell. And some of them will stay 3 feet in size. Others, like vanilla strawberry, can get up to 7 to 8 feet. And like I said, they're just so easy to take care of. The only problem is deer will sometimes eat on those. I've had some of them where they didn't get any flowers on one side because the deer stood there and pretty much ate on them. So that's the only drawback on them, but easy to take care of, and you don't have to do all that fussiness with soil, okay? So they're just really nice. This is a new Weigela, spilled wine. The reason I put it in there is because, look at the foliage is really dark, maroon foliage, and you get the nice trumpet-shaped flowers of a deep wine color. Really pretty. That'll bloom in June. And then when it's done blooming, you get the nice foliage of the dark purple on it. Again, that's not rabbit resistant. They can eat on them. So be careful with there. But otherwise, they're going to stay in that 3 to 4 foot in size. And then flowering crab apples. There are so many varieties of those. We've kind of limited our flowering crab apples to certain varieties because most people do not want to pick up little apples anymore. So we make sure they're all persistent on the tree. A lot of the varieties. So we've got about 6 of them that we do sell. And it's funny because it's been almost a month now that I've had, because I got a lot of crab apples, and I have all the varieties, but the fruit hangs on. I had robins, lots of robins, and they come back in spring, and what's the first thing they look for? Something to eat, especially when we had that snowstorm last week. They have cleaned off every fruit of my crab apples, so it's good for the birds also. And then, like I said, you get the blooms. They're beautiful in spring, and lots of varieties, different colors from pink to white to red almost. Again, you know what the bad part is? It seems like when they bloom, you get a wind like 60 miles an hour and all the petals are gone. But we love them. Redbud. We've been planting redbuds for years now. A lot of people would come up from down south and they'd, on their way up through Iowa and Nebraska, would say, we see these little pink trees, and it's just gorgeous. They're all full of, I don't know, pink flowers. What are they? Well, they were red buds blooming in spring. They will flower before the leaves come on. But the University of Minnesota has worked on it, and they have now got, and had it for years, a Minnesota strain, which means it can survive in Minnesota. So if you're buying a red bud, you want to make sure you get the Minnesota growing one, okay? Because if you just order one and have one, most likely it could die out. But it's a cute little tree. The leaves, when it does leaf out, are almost round. But this is in spring, before the leaves come on, and they'll get 20, 25 feet tall. So if you're looking for a little tree for decorative, it's really pretty. A lot of times we'll sell them as a multi-stem clump, just to have a little more accent. So, serviceberry is another one. I like serviceberry because it blooms early, generally in that April, late April. And when it blooms, it's all white flowers. It'll have little blue fruit on it, and the birds will eat them off. But if you're looking for a smaller little tree that doesn't get real big, or multi-stem, it's only like 15 feet tall, maybe 20 feet. Really pretty. So now, I just want to mention this. This program, how many have heard of the Lawn to Legumes? This is a program started that you can actually apply to get some money. Yeah, here. You can go on, like, reimbursed up to $400 for cost if you take part of your yard and want to make a little bee, butterfly habitat, okay? So you can go online, look up Lawns to Legumes, right, Emily? Here we go. Yep, there's a link there. But I want to put on, and I've had people in town here apply for it. And what you do is if you're planting a small area in your yard for the bees and butterflies, they'll give you money to actually go purchase plants. It's got to be native plants. What's that?
We can share this link too.
Yeah, yep. And it's kind of nice because people have heard about it and said, you know, but what they're trying to do is promote people to go out there and plant native stuff and try to get back to the bees and butterflies, because we've lost a lot of bees over the years, and we're all, you know, need to be aware of it. But there we got a little list. Like I said, I put this in here because I wanted people who don't know about it and are thinking about doing a little planting to do it. But that's what the program's called.
Anything else?
No. I had to show you. Go back to this,
Which one?
the one with the peach tree.
Oh.
This is a peach tree. That's at my place. Can you grow peaches here? Yes, you can. I had this peach tree, and it all died except for one branch. And 2 years ago, this branch was hanging there. And these are real peaches right outside New here. And I picked almost 200 peaches off of one branch that was alive. And they were big and they were juicy. And we had the best peach cobbler that you ever had. The only thing peach trees is you never know how long the peach tree will last. Okay, because like I said, it's kind of in the plum family, peaches. One year you have it, you get a bad winter, and it could freeze out, or they die, you know, and stuff like that. But if you can get a peach tree to grow here, which I have sold a lot, and I had one guy tell me last year he had over 500 peaches on his tree. And when you pick them off the tree, right, now I'm not talking out of a store, it's kind of like buying tomatoes from a store, growing your own. It's a world of difference, and the juice will run down. This peach variety was called Contender. So don't be afraid to try one, but don't be upset if your tree dies on you.
Don't some places in Minnesota use sludge pots if frost gets too threatening?
Well, you could, but
That sounds putsy.
yeah. And like I said, the problem is if it have a real cold snap in winter, sometimes it'll freeze the buds off.
You need two?
You only need one. Yep, so that's a nice thing. But yeah, I had boxes full of peaches and stuff like that. So, but the other thing is, I just want to mention, I don't have slides of it, but your lawn. People always ask me, and like I said, I started out by, the question is, what do people ask me? When we're planting grass, most people don't realize that lawns need sunlight. Even though they say shady varieties are out there, that doesn't mean they're going to grow in shade. That means maybe they still need 3 to 4 hours of sunlight. And growing grass underneath trees can be tricky. Oak trees, fine. Trim them up. They have deep roots. The worst is maples. Maples are so shallow rooted. When the grass is there, you can dig in the ground. There's so many roots. And what's going to win? The roots are going to take the moisture away, the nutrients and everything, especially when it starts getting dry. When it takes the moisture away, the grass just dies out and it's gone. So what do? You got options. You can just put mulch underneath there. There's many of ground covers that'll work underneath trees, anything from vinca to lamium, some of these ground covers. Because don't try to keep putting the grass. I had somebody ask me yesterday, they said, I don't have any grass underneath my trees. Again, another question. I think I'm just going to sod it. You're laughing because I think some of you know that there's different types of grass. And sod is strictly bluegrass. And why is sod strictly bluegrass? Because when they cut it, it stays together because it spreads by rhizomes. Fescue grows better in shade, but it's a clump-forming grass. So if they were to make sod of that, you'd cut it and fall apart. So that's why if you're going to try to grow some grass in the shade, you want to go with more of a fescue mix, okay, because it will take shade more. But otherwise, there are other grasses, and there are some out there. I've got some grass varieties I'd like to try in shade. They said it could take pretty dense shade, so I'm going to do a little experimenting. They cost a lot more for the seed, but I want to see how much shade they can take. But sometimes it's just not meant to grow, and that's why these lawns, people think they want grass to grow there, but it doesn't grow. They're not meant to grow underneath there. But and the same thing is, behind my house, I had a beautiful lawn, and right now there is no grass left. But you know why? I've got 2 trees I planted there 30 years ago. One was a sugar maple, the other was a red oak, and they were this big, 1-inch size, and I had the most beautiful one. Right now, both of them, the trunk is like this. They have got a canopy of 35 feet each way, and there is no light underneath there, and my grass is gone. So right now, it's just black. It's dirt, So I just kind of leave it. I have trimmed it up a little bit. I am thinking about doing some mulching and stuff around there, and trying some different ground covers. But yeah, so don't call me and ask me what you can plant underneath your tree, because it's not going to work. The other thing, with lawns too, there's so many different types out there. If it's a tough area, your ryegrass is your toughest grass. And then, like I said, so when you're buying seed, you want to buy a blend. Don't buy some grass seed that just says strictly bluegrass, even though people think, oh, bluegrass is really neat. You want to have generally a blend of bluegrass, fescue, and ryegrass. The reason for that is everyone grows a little bit different. Some will take heat better than others, so as some are going a little dormant, others will stay green. And for diseases. We see too many diseases when a yard is sodded. You can get, because it's bluegrass, you can get different brown patches in there, dead patches in there. So you really, really want to have a variety of grass. So most people ask me, is it better to seed or sod? We virtually almost gave up sodding already. here's what happens when you sod. You roll it out like carpet, you got instant grass, but you better water it and water it and water it. It's gonna root in. I have gone and taken out some grass in people's yards, and it'll be, maybe they sod it like 5 years ago, but I didn't even know it, but I'm going in there taking out some of the grass, and I could just about roll it up. I said, did you sod your yard? He said, yeah, we did that 5 years ago. I said, well, the roots barely rooted in, okay? Because here's what happens. They watered it so it would stay green. If they quit watering, it turned brown, so they watered it. So those roots never had to penetrate down deep, okay? When you seed, the roots are gonna go down, and they're gonna go deep. 12 inches, maybe 24 inches, okay? And when it gets dry out, and we have a drought in summer, if your lawn, if you don't water it, and you seeded your lawn, 95% of the time, it's gonna come back. Sod, if you don't water it in summer, and if you have a drought, it's gone. It's gone, because it didn't root deep. So that's the other thing. So that's why we like to seed. And if you're gonna seed grass, again, spring is tough. Everybody wants to do it now because they think it's planting time. Here's what happens in spring. You put the grass seed out there, Mother Nature said, okay, it's time to grow. So your little grass starts coming up. What else comes up? Every weed seed that's in that ground. And you can't put a chemical on there to kill it because you'll kill the grass. The other thing I have people is, well, I put crabgrass preventer on, and crabgrass preventer is a pre-emergent, okay? It keeps crabgrass from growing, so when the seed germinates, it kills it. It also kills a lot of other weeds as they germinate. It does not kill existing weeds. So if you think you spread crabgrass killer on your lawn or had some company do it, and then you're gonna go out and put grass seed on there, it's not gonna work. It will kill your grass seed as it germinates. So don't put crabgrass killer on there if you're gonna seed. But that's the hard part. So when is the ideal time for planting grass? Fall. When I say ideal time, August 15th through September 20th. We seed 90% of our lawns. Because what? It gets too late for, weed seeds generally won't germinate because it gets too late in the season. They'll say, why do I want to germinate now? Because I might freeze off in a month. So they don't. They'll hold off for a year. So, but the grass loves the cool weather and will germinate, and you'll get ahead of the weeds. If you can't get it also done at that time, we do it called a dormant seeding, which we'll seed sometimes November before the snow and let it lay in there. And try to get an early start, so now when the snow melts like this, the seed's there, and as soon as it warms up, your grass will come, hopefully to get ahead of the weeds. That's a gamble though, because if we don't have any snow in winter and the wind blows all the time, you could lose some of your seed. So, I think some of the trends over the, years coming up here is people are, trying to use less synthetic fertilizers, on it, using more organic fertilizers. I've had somebody to think, like, if they put a little fertilizer on their plants or their lawn, it's good for it, right? It'll make it green up and grow. If they put a little bit more on, it'll be even better. No, there's a reason to limit that, because that grass, it contains high amounts of salt, and it'll burn your grass. It takes the moisture right out of the plant and kill it. So use recommendations. The other thing is, I've had people, well, why is this fertilizer $40 a bag, and I can buy this one over here for $10 a bag? It's what's in it. All these fertilizers are not the same. When it says 10%, or when the numbers on there say 10, 10, 10, that means there's 10% nitrogen in there, 20% 10% phosphorus, and 10% potassium. So in that bag, you're only getting 10% nitrogen. The rest is filler. So some of them may say like 40, 10, 10, you're getting 40% nitrogen in there. So that's why some of these, you have to look at an analysis on the bag. And it depends on the fertilizers they put in there. So be careful. You don't really need, I don't think you need to fertilize your lawn as much as people think you do. Well, some people just want it so they can mow more. Because the more they fertilize, the more they water, I was going to say, they'll fertilize it. They complain about mowing, but then they fertilize their lawn so they can mow more. And then when it gets a little dry, well, then they hire somebody to put an irrigation in so they can water it, so then they can mow it some more. It just keeps going, Yeah, so.
So what's a good balance in terms of, phosphorus and so forth?
Well, so on lawn fertilizers now, they will not put, if it's just for your lawn fertilizer, they will not put phosphorus in lawn fertilizer unless you're starting with a lawn starter. Because here's the thing. So just for example, if it says 20, 10, 10, the first number is always nitrogen, okay, on a bag of fertilizer, which keeps your plants nice and green, makes them grow, okay, and keeps the nice green color. The next one is phosphorus, good for root development, and if it was for flowers, it'd make it for really blooming, for nice blooms, okay. And then the last one's potassium, just to make your plant strong and durable and tough, okay? But the reason they took out phosphorus in lawn fertilizer is because places for fertilizing, the phosphorus, especially, be careful, like if you're spreading it in town and it flew out in the street, most people then go sweep it up. It just let it run down the storm sewer. Once it got in there, it got into water, and phosphorus promoted algae growth and everything else. So they don't want it. They don't want it in there. So, and you really don't need it once your lawn is growing. But we do sell it with starter fertilizer because it helps with root development. Okay, and it's good for flowers and stuff like that. So yes, Bob.
You gotta be careful with them. A couple of years ago, I asked them to come out to my house for a curb appeal. And I said, don't tell me to curb appeal and wear a paper bag over my head when I come out the house. What was your comment? He said, you need a tight-fitting plastic bag over your head.
Oh, but you're still here. Oh, yeah. So, yes.
Is there anything you can do that doesn't damage the environment to control creeping Charlie?
Very good question. Creeping Charlie is one of those. That's a great ground cover. It will grow anywhere, in the shade. Yeah, it's hard because you can try smothering it, you know, by covering it up with plastic. Or I have an area. I actually, the leaves are about that thick. I raked on it because there was no grass left except for Creeping Charlie. But yeah, otherwise it's one of those. It just picks up. It can pick up on your mower piece, and you can spread it, and it's tough. But they still sell Creeping Charlie. I see it for sale in magazines, and it says great ground cover grows anywhere, and they're right. But once you get it, you can't get rid of it, and it's hard because it just keeps spreading and stuff like that. So yeah, there are some chemicals, and you know we always have to be careful with chemicals and spray. Every year I have about 2 or 3 people that told me, Tony, I sprayed my yard. I thought I had weed killer in there. I had Roundup. Well, they're pretty much done for the year, you know. And I've seen. I could take pictures of the yards, and they're brown all summer. So you label yours. I have got, you know, because I grow fruit trees. I don't like to spray my fruit trees if I don't have to, but I do a little bit of spraying on them. But everything's labeled. If I got a fungicide, just label it in a container. Weed killer, you know, whatever it is. I've had people that have spread fertilizer on their lawn and then also spread fertilizer in the garden, and then they realize, oh, I put the weed feed in my garden. Now what? Well, I wouldn't eat those vegetables, you know. So just be careful. Yeah, it's one of those. Just you have to label your sprayers and your stuff. Otherwise, you can run into problems.
Is boron a pretty safe chemical for Creeping Charlie?
You can use it. I haven't used it, but it is better than, yeah.
If you can find it.
Yes.
Should be concerned about bark coming off old maple trees.
Like bark just falling off? Well, unless the tree is dying. Now, right now, you know, I don't know if there's a disease problem, but is the tree dead or just falling off?
In spots, yeah.
Okay. Well, then there could be something going on if it's got some fungal disease inside, or if something happened to that. Once the tissue dies in there, the bark will fall off. Okay. So something could be happening to that tree.
But it seems like it grows back underneath it.
Oh, then you're fine, because sometimes if it's a big tree, the bark piece of it will just fall off because it's defoliating, you know, and just shedding some. So that could be normal. But if big pieces fall off, then you've got problems. Yeah. Well, sometimes they can have frost cracks too, and I've seen them where they have damage, and then they'll heal up. You know, pieces will fall off. But as long as it's healing over and you got new tissue there, you should be okay.
How do you feel about staking a new tree?
I very seldom stake a tree. but sometimes it's necessary if I'm out in a high wind area, and be careful. Because this is a whole nother talk. I can show you pictures where I had people, have put stakes on a tree, put a rope around it. I had somebody call me and they couldn't figure out what's happening. They bought a whole bunch of trees from me, they staked them, okay? And I said, I don't know what's happening, but top is all dying. Well, the tree, he put a rope around it, the tree kept going. What happens if you put a rope around your neck? It cut off everything. The tree grew, it was about this big on the bottom. The top, it was half the size. The rope had cut into it and cut off all the nutrients, okay, to the top of the tree and killed it. And, I just took the knife and I said, we got to get these ropes off him. I saved most of his trees. Some had big indents already. But if you're going to stake a tree, try to only put a couple stakes on and make a loop around it. Never put the rope tight around that trunk, because as the tree grows, it doesn't push the rope out of the way. It's going to grow into it. And many people don't realize, on a tree, right underneath the bark, if you scrape it, you see the green tissue. That's the cambium layer. That is where the nutrients go. All the material inside, the wood, that's old growth. That serves no purpose except for support of the tree. So I have had people weed whip around the trees and cut the little bark off and have totally killed their tree. And they think nothing of it because, I just took a little bark off around it. That's not going to hurt. It did. That's why when rabbits, rabbits in winter, we tell people to wrap their trees. I have people call me, and they send me a lot of pictures now because, you can do that with phones. And they said, can I save my tree? And there'll be a tree this big, and the first 2 feet, the bark is completely, it's gone. The tree is dead. And even if you wait, I have some people say, well, I'm going to wait and see if it's going to come. And then they'll call me in June and go, look it's got leaves. That's because it still had sap. It had life left in it. And eventually, it just peters out. So we protect our trees from the rabbits and the deer, but we have to be careful, because I have had, and sometimes young people don't know. You want to give them a job, and they go weed whip or they mow, and they run in and they ruin the bark on it and stuff like that. And, they feel bad. I had a golf course once call me. They hired some young kid, and he mowed for him, and he weed whipped, killed every one of his young trees. So they felt really bad, but he didn't know. He thought he was doing a good job weed whipping. That's why we like to keep. I always tell people, when we plant a tree, keep the grass away from it for 2 reasons. It'll help not having root competition from the grass there, and the other thing is we don't have to worry about somebody weed whipping or running by with a mower. And it holds some moisture in there. So put some mulch, but don't pile it up around the trunk. Keep it down low, away from the trunk, because if that stays wet there, then your tree could rot. So just put some mulch around it.
Is it safe to use lawn clippings in your garden?
It is. So you can use them if you want to spread them in there to help weed control.
Yes.
Certainly. I'd be a little leery though if you just had it, if for some reason it was sprayed, gathering clippings if it was sprayed with a weed killer to put in there. But otherwise, ideally, I like to compost them down and then amend it to the soil. If you can make your own compost, it's really nice by putting the leaves, grass, and let it decompose. It adds not only nutrients to the soil, but it conditions the soil, the number one condition. It's kind of tough when I go to a new home and have to do planting, and I can't get my shovel in the ground. Because you know what? Whoever got done there said they did a nice job, and they went back with the skid loader 30 times, and they spread the dirt, and they packed it. I have been in places where I've dug a hole, filled it up with water, and 3 days later I come there and it's still full of water. You can't grow trees in that. And me being a horticulturist know this. You couldn't grow corn in that ground. But the people doing the construction work, they don't care. They just want to get it done and shined up, and then add a little black dirt. It looks nice. It's terrible for growing things. It just gets hard. Yeah. Ideally in my garden, if you could, you should be able to, after tilling, just be nice and work the ground up, almost dig it with your hand. Yeah, compaction is tough for plants, for root development. So that's why amending it with compost. Unfortunately, we have a great facility out there, our compost site. The bad part is we have too many people throwing junk in there. I got some one year and I spread it in the garden, and the next year I had 1,000 mulberry trees come up. Because somebody must have raked up their mulberries and hauled them there. You know, obviously the fruit was gone, you couldn't see the seeds. And then it rained, and then pretty soon I had glass. You know, so I've never gotten any from it. If somebody use it, great, but it's just, if we could control it, that's why I kind of make my own. So it's just so much beneficial. So, yes.
So how about if your husband says, we didn't feed on the grass, we cut the grass and put it in the garden? Is that okay?
Was it spray or granular?
Granular.
You know, once it's rained in, you know, if it rains on it, and after that a little bit, and after a week or two, you should be fine. Yeah. No, because you know the thing is, it's come to the point. You know, some people are getting used to it, but it's always tough. You got to admit, when you live in town and one person doesn't do anything with their yard, and the next one does, it's difficult. You know, because they might like being a little more natural and have dandelions and say they're, you know, for the environment. And the next one, well, they don't want to weed in their yard, so it is tough. Yes.
2 questions. On the grass right now, there's just tons of sand and everything from the snow plows. We're kind of new here.
Okay.
What do we do with that and when?
Well, as soon as your lawn gets kind of dry here, do your best to try to rake it off, if you can. Rake it off. Even if, I've gone through it with a blower and tried to blow some of it out and get it off. You're never going to get it all off, but yeah, the salt and sand that gets on from the roads, yeah, just try to clean up. Sometimes you get so much over years that, you know, if it's on a boulevard, it actually builds your grass up so high. And I've gone for people and have completely cleaned it off and dug it down 4 inches and got it back to the normal level. But yeah, all you can do is kind of rake it off and be careful if you're going to be raking your lawn. You know, now everybody wants to get out because it's beautiful. If your lawn's dry, you can rake it and stuff like that. Just don't rake it when it's too wet. Start tearing out some of the grass roots. So.
And the other question, all this talk about attracting bees, I'm afraid of bees. Why would I plant something like that?
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to. But it's a good point. Not everybody likes bees. But, you know, the thing of it is, there's a difference between bees and, like, wasp and hornets like that. I get stung every year. And poor Emily here, she swelled up last year from getting stung accidentally, you know. And it's like, well, we work outside. But I've got a lot of these plants right by my house. And I could sit by some of these, and I'll sit there, and the bees are just thick all over. But they're busy. I'm not bothering them. They're not bothering me. It's different if you have ground hornets or wasps, because I have, you know, accidentally been digging in somebody's yard, and out comes a ground hornet, and they're fierce, and they'll come and they just attack you. So there is a difference. So the bees, yeah, unless you accidentally step on one, or, you know, or put your hand or swat it because it was flying by, you didn't think what it was, yeah, you could get stung. But yeah, you don't have to. But the reason we're on is because bees, we need bees. We all know that because they pollinate so many of the crops for us.
90% of our food that we eat.
Yeah. How much? 90% of our food that we eat? They pollinate, so, yeah.
Is there a time when the bees wouldn't be there so much? Is it when it's colder out? Or if you want to go out and do some garden work, would you do it in the morning or?
If you do it early, yeah, because the bees, generally in the mornings, you know, if you go out early, they're kind of off yet in their hives or whatever and stuff. So if you want to do it, yeah, good question.
A lot of our pollinating bees don't sting, though.
Yeah, and there's you know, there's the little Hoover bees, you know, that kind of fly around and stuff like that. So there are ones that do not sting either.
But how do you know that?
No bees.
I get you a bee suit. I do have one.
I've seen that here and there.
Yeah, but I don't, because I have somebody that brings hives out to my place, and yeah, and there's just bees everywhere. But you know what? I know when the hives show up, because usually I'll come home and I'll walk by my crabapple trees, and it's just the whole tree is shaking with bees. It's really cool. It's really cool. But they don't bother me. I'll look in the trees and they'll be all over. But like I said, they're so busy. They're so busy. Busy as a bee, remember? So, but yeah, we run into hornets and all kinds of things. Do you have a question back there?
It's the same as purpose about having all the sand on the boulevard, just thick, you know, from the snowplow and sand.
Yeah. So try your best to rake it off. That's the only thing you can do, and brush it off, blow it off. So.
Yeah, will it kill the grass? Will
Well, generally it doesn't kill it, you know, the grass kind of slowly grows through it, but it just gets higher and higher every year, you know. So,
I'll wait till it dries up, but.
yeah, wait till it dries up. So. Other questions? I mean, we could talk all day about plants, you know, because of stuff like that.
So I have walnut tree, and deer seem to be loving it, and they rooted up a lot in my yard around that, under that tree. Is there anything I need to do, I need to be mindful of, like, you know, taking care of those areas? And also, do you have any plants that are resistant, that drive out no-see-ums and drive out mosquitoes?
Well, we do have annual flowers that sometimes for mosquitoes. What was the one, Emily? The lemongrass, and we have a couple. So they're kind of annual ones that for mosquitoes. Citronella plants, we get those in too once in a while that you can plant. And it's kind of like, well, people ask, do they work? Well, I think if you have it sitting here, maybe the mosquitoes won't be there, but you know, if you're sitting over here, they're probably going to still come, and stuff like that. But you know, that's a whole other question when we talking about walnuts. Some of you know this, but others may not, that walnuts have a toxin in their roots called juggalo. And they'll kill a lot of plants. They'll kill not only vegetables and flowers, but they will kill other trees. You cannot grow, well, once in a while you get lucky, but don't plant fruit trees next to the walnuts. Apple trees, for sure, will die. I always have, it will kill evergreens, like spruce and pines. It'll kill a lot of the other trees. I don't have the whole list here. We know over time what we can plant next to walnuts. But I have had people in town here say, I planted a row of evergreens in my yard, and they're just, why aren't they growing? And some are dying, they're stunted. I'll look in the neighbor's yard, which will be 40 feet away, and it'll be a huge walnut. There it is. Roots from them big walnuts, they can go 75 feet. And it's the roots. If they come in contact with other roots, they will kill the plant. So I showed them, we actually took the trees that were still kind of alive, moved them in another place in the yard, far away, and 2 years later, they were putting on a foot of growth. And for 4 years, they didn't grow at all. So, same, but garden things like tomatoes and stuff like that, yeah, not next to walnuts.
So to that point, if I want to plan a row of evergreens that, for one, find evergreens that are fast growing for a natural wind barrier. I got people's farm open field that's just like ferocious. We moved here in June.
Yep.
As you know. So I'm learning about, you know, what the wind does and everything. And we got a walnut tree. I should probably maybe consider, you know, or having you come out and look at it, see if that's, you know, that tree's distant enough for evergreen growth. Secondly, what's your recommendation for how close should a tree be planted to a home? You know?
Good questions. And, you know, as far as tree plant to a home, all depends on variety, you know, and stuff like that. If you're going with a big shade tree, I would stay 25, 30 feet away. But if you're going with small, some of these decorative like the redbud or the serviceberry, you can go as close as 10 feet. Sometimes I'll put them off the corner of a house. I just don't want them to run in. And most of the roots on a big tree, if you're 25, 30 feet away, as those roots grow out, they get pretty fine there. Although people don't realize, they always say, oh, the roots will be at the crown of the plant, right? 3 times that. I have had people in the yard, they'll have a front, big maple in their front yard. There won't be any other trees around. I'll be in the backyard digging up, and there's roots. And I'll pull them up, and I'll say, you know where these roots came from? Your tree in the front. They're like, really? That's like 100 feet. I said, yes, they've traveled all that ways. They'll go a long distance, those roots. So, yeah, so keep them away.
So yeah, so walnut tree.
Yes.
So that lawn to legumes, would that work anywhere near a walnut tree?
You could. You could if you make it, but you'd have to make sure you get varieties that will tolerate the juggalo from the walnut. So, and I do have a list. I mean, I know what kind of trees we won't plant. Like we'll plant, you know, like hackberries and oaks, and some of those will grow next to walnuts. But like I said, like birch, crab apples, no, not at all. So,
I'm over trenching across my backyard, probably 12, 14 inches deep. And I would be maybe 20 feet away from a huge maple tree, probably 4 feet in diameter.
okay.
Will that, trenching at that depth, damage the tree or?
No, if you're gonna be 20 feet away, you will cut some roots, but they've got so many roots. And when the roots are out that far, they'll regrow. They'll regrow roots, so you'll be fine.
After a walnut tree dies and is taken down, how many years before you could?
Figure about 5 years till those roots. Yeah, but some people tell me, oh, I'll just cut it down and I can plant. No, they will be toxic for at least 5 years. Yeah, even if you grind that stump out. And that's the other thing we talk about, grinding stump. I have people all the time, I took down my tree and I ground a stump out, now let's plant a tree there. That doesn't work. Because you know what, I mean, they do a good job taking it down and grinding out, but when you've got a huge stump, I've dug them out with a backhoe, and I mean, it'll be 6 feet by 6 feet, and I'll get the big. So they take out the top so they can put some dirt over it, but 80% of that stump is still in there, and we can't plant there unless you actually dig out that stump, which gets to be quite a job. So we generally recommend moving it 5, 6 feet away, and then we're okay. But it's kind of tough because you know where that tree was. That's kind of, you know, the good spot because your sidewalk's here and the house is here, you know, so you only have so much room. And with all these ash trees going down, I talk about all the time, you know, people always ask, what should we be planting? Well, plant a variety because I think we learned, you know, after with all these ash trees, after the elms went down, ash was a good tree, right? Grew anywhere. You get seedless ones, fast, tolerated any soil. Now look at it. There's groves and groves of ash trees all coming down and stuff like that. So I know now I have people, oh, I like maples. I like maples too, but don't plant too many of them. There's probably more maples in town than there are ash trees. I've walked the streets and I did a little survey, and I would say close to 50% of the trees in town were probably maples. Only about 35% that I surveyed were about ash, and then the other 15% were some lindens, honey locusts, and stuff like that. But there are trees out there. People go, what do you plant? Okay, there's honey locust, there's lindens, there are oaks. Although bur oaks, we've kind of limited on bur oaks because of bur oak blight. But there are others, oaks, swamp white's a really nice one. The ginkgos, lindens, oaks, elms. They got new elms out, disease-resistant elms, and they seem real promising. The only thing that they grow so quick, 5 feet a year. The problem is, I've seen them grow so quick, and anytime a tree grows so quick, it's weak-wooded, so then it can break. So I've seen some of those actually split. You know, Kentucky coffee tree. For those with the Kentucky coffee tree, that used to have this big pod, big leathery pod, little beans in there. Some people like throw them at each other, whatever, but anyway, but now they got some seedless varieties. It's a tough tree, a very tough tree, Kentucky coffee tree. Hackberry. Hackberry is another one. Some people don't like them because of no-see-ums, but it's a strong tree. Strong tree. So there are trees out there. It's amazing how many weeping willows I sell. People, weeping willow? Yeah, they're pretty. They're pretty. In the right area, you know, they'll grow quick too. So.
I planted we had a honey locust in the front yard, and it got quite large, and it ended up needing to be cut down. So we cut it off, and all of a sudden the honey locusts were coming up through the lawn, out of the roots, all over the front yard.
Yep.
And so I was always hacking away. And a man was there doing some work, and he said, yeah, I was talking to this 90-year-old farmer, and he said, oh, if you want to get rid of those honey locusts, pound brass nails into the root system. And I laughed, and I said, I'll do anything. So I bought some brass nails. Yeah, brown. Copper?
Copper.
Copper nails, excuse me. Copper nails, pounded them in, not another one.
Wow.
Copper nails.
Did you find the nails out? Did you get the nails back?
No, they're down in those.
They claim that works. I've never done it, but sometimes I just use some brush killer to kill it. But anyway, but that is on certain trees when you cut it down, suddenly they want to keep growing, so they'll sprout off of the roots. And some of the popular trees, kind of in the cottonwood family and stuff, will do that. You cut it down, and or there's one that was in the prunus family, plum family. You cut the tree down, and suddenly every root that was in there, they were sending up shoots, and you virtually had to go in there and either treat them or dig the whole yard up and get rid of all those roots. So, yeah. So anyway, but there's quite a few trees to plant. I always said, look what your neighbors planted, and then plant something else. So, you know, so you don't have disease problems. But yeah. Anyway.
Okay, I'd like to thank you for being here. I'm part of the Environment Committee, and if you want to stick around and talk with me more. So, thank you all for